Do you remember that episode of The Office that aired after the Super Bowl one year where it was like stress management or stress relief or something like that?
Yeah.
And not off the top of my head, no.
And it opens with the big fire scene. Dwight starts a fire and everyone's running around.
Yes.
And then later in the episode, they have a dummy there and they're practicing CPR on it.
Yeah.
And Dwight Schrute
Cuts off.
Where is this going? What is happening right now?
I'm Hannibal.
Oh.
I have this face on.
Oh, okay. You're doing great.
Thanks.
You're doing wonderful.
Wow. I loved that
I was doing
so
an impression
much.
of Dwight Schrute doing an impression of Hannibal Lecter, but with the props that I had available.
Hi, baby listeners. This is The Book is Better, which you know because you tapped on this from somewhere. And we're going to be talking about something a little interesting today. You might notice that one of our podcasters is missing. That's because we killed him and ate his face, and he's not here. And
No, I'm wearing
really
his
sad.
face.
Oh, you kind of do look like him. Okay, good job. All right. Well, that was a joke. We didn't eat anybody's face. And actually, our dad is still alive and refuses to do this episode. So I traveled and am sitting in his seat. Josiah took his face, I took his seat, and we kicked him out of the state and he had to leave. And so
And
now we're
Mom
going to be
is-
talking.
Mom switched
Mom
with
is-
you, so she's at your place.
No, she's just there. She's just where she is. So we're talking about the Silence of the Lambs today. Woo!
Yes.
Is Dad on a missions trip? Are we saying
He
that?
is. He's on a missions trip somewhere.
He's in
Peoria,
Peoria, Illinois.
So track him down, kill him, take his face.
Well, I mean, he's already
He's
had
at-
that happen.
He's at
So-
413 Peoria Avenue.
Main Street, Peoria.
Exactly. We are talking about Silence of the Lambs and content warning. If you live under a rock and you don't know what Silence of the Lambs is, this is not an episode appropriate for the little children, because not only did our dad refuse to do this episode, our editor also refused to do this episode. And so we're kicking it back to our executive producer, Josh. Thanks,
Wow.
babe. You're killing it.
Thanks, babe.
But not killing it like Hannibal, because that'd be different. That's like a different type of killing it.
Eventually
so
we'll stop
anyway,
with the puns.
no, probably not. I
maybe
think
not.
this episode is just going to be a lot of that. So, this is not an episode I would watch or listen to with littles around. We get into some dark stuff. We are going to spoil the Silence of the Lambs. We will probably also spoil content from the other films and books in this series. So,
Which are not as good, so you might as well not even bother.
this is the best for sure. Well, it's not my
Red Dragon,
favorite.
the book, is pretty good.
I haven't read the other books, but Red Dragon, the film, is my favorite.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
I know, I'm weird. That was a pretty low. Well, I think Hannibal. Anyway, we'll get into it. All right. So today's fun fact. Since Dad ducked out on this one, and we're getting into some dark stuff later, let's talk about something lovely. What is your favorite thing about Dad that you love? I love so many things about my dad. There's much, much to love. Not least of which is that he's not a cannibal, but many other things in addition to that I love about him. I think we're very much alike and we joke about that a lot. But I think one of my favorite little things about Dad, because he loves me well, he's a good dad, he's supportive, he's my champion and cheerleader and all that stuff. But I love that he cares about the little things that I find so interesting the same way I do. So we lived in Smyrna outside of Nashville at one point. And I remember it was the first time I'd seen a stoplight where the red light in this one stoplight had a big blinking white circle around it. And the first time I moved there, internally, I didn't say it out to anybody else because I knew no one else would care. Internally, I was like, that's so interesting. I bet you that light is in the direct line of the sun. And so at certain times of day, that white flashing light helps you for sure know that it's the red light that's on so that you don't accidentally run it. I'd never said it to anybody. And then the first time mom and dad visited us at that apartment, dad was in the front seat and we got to that stoplight and he saw it and he was like, oh, wow, isn't it cool that like circle is blinking around it? I bet it's for when the sunlight is directly on this thing. And so I just remember that as like this, we lived there in like 2011. I remember that as this fun little thing that's like, it's kind of the way that dad and I interact is like, we love talking about things that are details that other people just don't care about.
Yeah. Timmy the dad, he's quite a servant-minded person. You get a lot of really healthy masculinity from this man, full of compassion and sternness, full of love for everyone, and also the love enough to correct. Such a servant. I don't know if I want to encourage his most serving tendencies. But he'll come to my apartment, and if he stays over, my bathtub will be cleaned mysteriously while he's there. He will break his back to help his fellow man, especially his family and his close friends. But I have seen him bend over backwards to help some of the hardest to love people that I've ever met.
So I live a charmed life. I don't even know how to really put into words how this all happened. And we were just telling somebody recently, we're together despite our own craziness, because when we met, we were both messes of people. But God just did this crazy thing, and I have to attribute it to him, because we certainly didn't know what we were doing. But Tim will tell people all he ever wanted as a teenager, his goals in life. And these, honestly, these weren't my goals as a teenager. I don't know if I had many goals as a teenager, but his goals in life as a teenager was to be a husband and a father. And other things would just fall in behind that. And he's amazing. I wish he could see himself like we see him, but then maybe he's not supposed to. Maybe that's not how we're supposed to see ourselves. I don't know. But I love him, and I have to be careful what area I go down here because I'll start crying, and I don't want to do that on the podcast. I've probably done that enough.
Dad won't even listen to this unless we make him.
We might make him listen to this section, and then he's like, okay, turn it off.
Yeah.
Well, completely changing gears from that. Mom, do you want to tell us what the Silence of the Lambs is all about?
Certainly. In arguably the greatest psychological drama, horror, thriller in movie history, The Silence of the Lambs follows FBI agent in training Clarice Starling as she tries to access some helpful information for another case from Dr. Hannibal Lecter, who's imprisoned for life after several vicious acts of cannibalism. Starling's soon-to-be boss, Special Agent Jack Crawford, believes she has what it takes to get into Lecter's head. The FBI is in pursuit of a serial killer named Buffalo Bill. It's so creepy, but it's great. Who is suspected to have some past connection to Hannibal, and possibly, am I thinking maybe even a patient? Did I remember that right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Clarice plays some mental hopscotch all the way through the film as she simultaneously is fascinated to understand or comprehend Lecter's mind and horrified as he drags her through her own dark past. Dun, dun, dun.
Okay, so before we get into differences, of which there are not many, what did we like about how they adapted this book to the film?
There's so much alike. Like you said, there's not a bunch of differences. But I like the fact that they kept Lecter creepy. They captured the intellectual part of him, so he doesn't just come across as a crazy killer.
Yeah.
That draws you to him, to the point almost for me where you want to like him. Like you want to
Agreed.
Get in his head, or you really want to understand. And for me, that's really important. That's one of the most important things for me, is seeing how people think.
I think I liked that both of the works, because the story is so similar. The first time I saw it, which I mean, it's been, a while. The first time I saw it, I don't think I knew what was going to happen. And I don't think there's a lot of films that I see anytime recently where I feel like that's the case. In this way, I mean, like there's not just one antagonist, and like Lecter, like you said, is not an antagonist. He's kind of a protagonist in a lot of it, but he's really evil, but he's really complex. And I think I loved that this story, just in general, the way it took you through, it wasn't like solving a murder mystery. It wasn't like, oh, there's this bad serial killer and we have to hunt him down. It felt like at any given point, I didn't know who was going to be the bad guy and how. And I just really liked that. I liked how twisty it felt. So for me, that was probably my favorite part. I also like the character of Clarice Starling. I think that she's interesting. She's a woman in a job that was, at the time, especially very male-centered. And, sometimes that can come off in a frustrating or annoying way in film. But I think that she pulled it off in the book too. Her character is well written. It doesn't feel annoying or like she's trying to step out of who she is to try and prove that she can put them in. It doesn't feel like that at all. It feels like she's a strong woman and has a really like clear purpose. And I like that she plays like a pivotal role, and that in the book, which you don't actually see in the film, this is slightly off, but it's not written anywhere else, I don't think. In the book, she specifically mentions to Jack Crawford, at least at one point, that as a woman, she understands what the main like victim of Buffalo Bill that's alive throughout the movie, that she understands what Catherine is going through as a woman in a way that Jack couldn't. And I don't know. I appreciated that. She was good portrayal of a strong woman with good purpose that didn't try to be a man.
She wasn't affected by the fact that the people in authority over her were males. And she didn't seem like she cowered down to them. I didn't feel like she was ever like, she was, like, oh, I'm just a girl. She was not that. That was not her character at all. But she also could respect the fact that Agent Crawford knew more. He had more experience. He had more whatever. And I felt like it was a good, strong female. I agree with you.
I appreciated that the portrayal of James Gumb, Buffalo Bill, was just as disturbing in the film as in the book. I mean, I guess probably more just because it was so visual. But I feel like I was reading the book and I thought, because you get to see from his perspective in certain chapters. And I was like, yeah, that is exactly what the film. Yeah, the film didn't invent very much. It took what was disturbing in the book and made it disturbing in the film.
All right, let's talk about our changes. I want to spend most of the time of this part just on characters, because I think that was really interesting. Mom found a lot of really interesting stuff about casting and those kinds of things that we'll just kind of talk about as we talk about the main characters. So first, obviously, Hannibal Lecter. If you think about this film and don't think Hannibal Lecter, somebody did something wrong. He, in the book, is described as wiry and small in stature. But as you've seen, if you've seen the film, obviously Anthony Hopkins is not either of those things. He's pretty stocky. He seems like someone who could easily overpower another person, even a man, a big guy. And so I thought that was really interesting. Other than that, he is pretty similar to in the book.
I read a long time ago about how Hopkins only appeared on screen for like 15 or 16 minutes, and he was nominated and won a Best Actor Oscar. So he holds the record for the least amount of screen time for a Best Actor or Best Actress winner.
Is that still the record right now?
It is still the record.
Wow.
Well, it's only 15 or 16 minutes. I think that Hopkins being nominated for lead actor is a little bit deceitful. He's kind of the lead actor. He is the second most important character in the film. And the first most important is a female, so I guess I understand lead actor. But he's only on screen for 16 minutes or so.
The role of Hannibal Lecter was also first offered to Sean Connery, which I cannot see in any way, shape, or form Sean Connery being Hannibal Lecter, but maybe that's just because I have a perception of
I can see
Hopkins. But he turned it down. Anthony Hopkins was approached because he had played Dr. Frederick Trevis. I don't know.
Maybe Treves. I don't know.
Treves
it's been years.
In The Elephant Man in 1980. Dem, the director, said that Lecter, like Dr. Treves, was a good man too, but the difference was Lecter was trapped in an insane mind, which I thought that was an interesting way to look at it. When Hopkins saw the script, they sent him a script and they told him it was on its way. Script was The Silence of the Lambs. And he asked, was it a children's book? It's not a children's book. But after he read the first 10 pages, he said, this is the greatest part he'd ever read for. So I thought that was pretty cool.
He's a fantastic actor and I've seen him in other things. However, it's so hard for me to divorce him from Hannibal. Like I see him and I see Anthony Hopkins as Hannibal Lecter. Yeah. Anthony Hopkins is that person. I don't know.
Is he a good actor? What is the only other time that that Anthony Hopkins won an acting Oscar? You will not know.
I do not know. Correct. I don't know.
It is for The Father in 2020. So it was a bad year for films. It was like the only Oscar ceremony that they did not end with announcing Best Picture because Chadwick Boseman was nominated for Best Lead Actor and everyone expected him to win and he had just died. And they expected to end the ceremony with celebrating Chadwick Boseman. So instead, the person gets up on stage and for the final award of the night, they announce that Anthony Hopkins has won Best Actor in a leading role. And he is not there at the ceremony, so they just go to credits.
That is cringy. That's super cringy.
I guess I liked him in the first season of Westworld. He was like the creepy mastermind secretly behind it all. I have a piece of trivia. I told someone today that we were going to record this episode tonight over at the factory, and Collier said that he read, and I didn't confirm this because I just wanted to go off Collier's word to give him full credit, that Anthony Hopkins based his voice, his accent, off of HAL 9000 from 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Yes, I read that.
Nice.
I did not include it in our notes, but I did read that.
Wow.
Okay. Thank you, Collier.
Good job, friend.
I don't think that he was a good actor in this film. I think that the character was so well written that it would have taken a crazy person to mess it up. Now, the voice was a good choice.
Yeah.
Okay, just imagine the scene where he's beating up the cop in the cell. That's just so unnatural. It makes me cringe to watch it. He's like,
But I feel like that was intentional.
I mean, it kind of works because he seems inhuman.
I love his
choice
not to blink often. I think he was inspired by something else. We looked this up.
Yeah.
But
yes.
I think that also, I mean, you know, choosing to blink less, does that make you a great actor? Perhaps not. However, I do think that it was incredibly compelling. And the first time Josh mentioned that to me, and then we went back and saw this, I've seen this movie so many times. I thought it was just such a good element to add because it added to that intrigue of his psychiatry work and the idea that he's just constantly looking at you and he's constantly perceiving more than anyone around him perceives. I do also enjoy that they made him like be able to smell in almost a supernatural way. He could smell things that other people just had never thought to be able to smell, especially from across the room or whatever. And they made him feel kind of supernatural in that way too, even though it's not a supernatural film.
I think that it's a common thing when you're film acting that you're not supposed to blink. But boy, oh boy, are his eyes wide open. They're always, yeah, I'm obvious because usually you don't want to make it seem like you're not blinking, but he makes it like I am a newt.
Yes, for sure.
What about Clarice Starling? She was cast as somewhat less traditionally attractive than she is described in the book. Arguably, the film limits her emotional processing on screen, which I think works to the film's benefit. Internal struggles weren't as much focused on her father in the book as in the film. So that's a slight change. Where,
I remember she remembered her mom.
Her mom was alive in the book longer. But the mom couldn't take care of her, so she still was sent off to her aunt's where the lambs were screaming. Sometimes I forget about Clarice Starling's character in the movie. You know, you remember a lot of Hannibal Lecter and Buffalo Bill. But I was reading the book, I was listening to the book and thinking, okay, yeah, this is a cool character. I see how in a man's world, it works to Clarice and Hannibal's benefit that Hannibal seems to be the only man who Clarice kind of feels safe around, who's willing to help Clarice instead of try and keep her down as the woman she is. And so it makes you like Hannibal more, and it makes you cheer for Clarice. And Jodie Foster, that innocent ingenue face just ramps it up to 11.
I found this interesting, and you noted this, that she's less traditionally attractive. One, I loved her hair in the film. Her hair was always neat, and so it looked very thick, but it always was in beautiful condition. I thought that was really important for her role. But the role was first offered to Michelle Pfeiffer. She worked with director Demi on Married to the Mob. And I'm not familiar with that film, but Pfeiffer refused it because she said she was nervous about the subject matter.
Yeah.
So she went on to do some other stuff. It was awful. Sorry, Michelle. Then they went.
Michelle Pfeiffer, when you hear this podcast episode, you better not get mad at us.
That's right. Shelley Duvall, she didn't get over it. And then she went and died. Not because of this, obviously. I would, oh God. Oh, Nina, don't even do that. I was going down a dark road there. Hang on. Okay. But after that, he approached Meg Ryan, who said the theme was too gruesome and she wasn't interested in it either.
Can you imagine Meg Ryan of You've Got Mail playing Clarice Starling?
Yeah. You could.
It wouldn't be as good weird. A movie, but I could imagine it.
Demi was not actually that wild about Jodie Foster. He did not think she could pull the role off, but she had read the book and had this crazy passion to play this character. Like, she went after the character, and he gave in.
I think it's interesting that her role as Clarice Starling was such a memorable one, because Jodie Foster was also asked to reprise that role when the Hannibal sequel was released, but she turned it down. The reason she turned it down is, we told you there'd be spoilers. Spoiler for Hannibal, in the book at the end, Clarice and Hannibal move in together and become, it's unclear if they're lovers or something different and maybe darker, but essentially Foster said that Starling would have never fallen under Lecter's spell, and so she did not reprise her role. Then, after they had already cast someone else, Julianne Moore, who played in Hannibal, they then had rewritten the script in a way that would have been more acceptable to Jodie Foster because they took out them running off together, but they'd already cast Julianne Moore, and so it was too late. So I think that's interesting. We'll talk in a little bit about how the movies and the books were released in such an odd kind of way. And in this case, by the time that she played in Silence of the Lambs, I think, Hannibal would not have come out. Hannibal came out 8 years after Silence of the Lambs was released. And so there's no way that Jodie Foster could have known like where the story went because there literally weren't more books in the series at that point. So, and I always wonder too, if the way that the author saw her portray Clarice Starling painted how he ended up writing Clarice's story as he continued the series. Because honestly, they have chemistry in the film. I think that they have a lot of chemistry in this very strange way.
But it's not, but the chemistry is a misdirect. And I think you're right that the author did that. I think the author is stupid and wrong to have done that. I think he fell for a trick that the filmmaker successfully put on, that there is sexual tension between Clarice and Hannibal, not because either one of them would ever be interested in one another, but because she is so vulnerable around him. And that's what draws him to her. And the reason that, you can talk about why does Clarice let herself be vulnerable to him. I think it's a mixture of she needs to do anything to get a leg up in this man's world. At the same time, it's almost like she feels safe with Hannibal compared to other men who are always eyeing her up and down.
Well, and Hannibal treats her in a more polite way than so many of those other men, even though he is such a horrible creature.
Yeah.
It's not the same.
They make a big deal about you're going to miss this exam and it's going to put you back 6 months. And they mention that in the film.
Recycling.
But I felt like in the book, it was a bigger deal that she is a woman in a man's world and she wasn't afraid of that. She wanted to conquer that. But would I have caught it in the film if I hadn't read the book? Would I have noticed thing about her, you'll lose 6 months and her friend keeps after her and Crawford's like, would he do this for her? Would he help her? That kind of thing. I don't know. I do think their chemistry is interesting. And I think at one point, after he escapes, she's like, she was, and I can't remember now what the setting was, but they were like, Starling, you have to be careful, basically. And she's like, he won't.
It's after he escapes.
Yeah. And she's like, he won't come after me.
I'm not. Friend, like at school. And the friend is like, aren't you worried or something? And she said, I can't describe it, but he no, he wouldn't come after me. He would consider that rude.
That's it.
She tells Jack Crawford in the book, I think.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of Jack Crawford, he's our next topic of discussion. He's very, very similar, but there is a book subplot about his wife's disease and death that they don't touch in the movie. I guess I could see what they were doing with it in the book. I got it. It was just a subplot there, and maybe it lended to his character a little bit, but I'm not sure what the payoff was.
Was the payoff that he let Clarice do some stuff that he might have done himself? After the halfway point in the book, Jack was letting her follow up on the early victim. Well, what I think it did partly was make Jack and Clarice's relationship less romantic possibility. Because in the book, once you learn that Jack has a wife, I never thought that there was a chance they would get together. But in the movie, constantly, it felt like Clarice was interested in sort of a daddy figure.
Yeah. Yes.
I wonder, too, if part of it came from Red Dragon. I haven't read Red Dragon, but Jack Crawford was a pretty major character in that as well. And so he was grooming... I can't remember his name right now off the top of my head.
Will.
But yes, he was grooming Will to be his replacement. And so I wonder if there's something in Red Dragon where his wife gets sick and Jack has to start taking care of her there. And so I wonder in this, because it's so odd, and we'll talk about it, that this is technically a sequel, even though for most people it feels like the first story. I wonder if it's like a continuation of Jack Crawford constantly trying to seek out someone who sticks out to him as someone who could replace his role.
I do think his description was slightly different in the book. It was almost like in the movie, he was the straight-laced, classically attractive 40-something-year-old. But in the book, it's almost like that's what he used to be like. And he's let himself go since his wife got sick. And maybe since Will Graham got Hannibal Lectered, but I think especially since his wife got sick. But, you know, for this movie, for Jack Crawford, the following actors were considered. Michael Keaton. Honestly, I wouldn't mind seeing Michael Keaton as Hannibal Lecter.
Oh,
yeah. That would be cool.
With Mickey Rourke. Mickey Rourke is, I know he was less weird, ugly then. Yeah. But Mickey Rourke would have been a great, disgusting Hannibal Lecter. I don't know about Jack Crawford.
Yeah.
And Kenneth Branagh.
Lord,
Jack
no,
Crawford?
He could. Yeah.
I can see it.
He's pretty.
He's too pretty.
But why is that a problem?
I don't know. Well,
I feel like Jack Crawford, he didn't look like a dad yet. Jack Crawford is Clarice's father figure in complicated ways. Kenneth Branagh was probably too young, I feel like.
What would Kenneth Branagh have been like as Bill?
I don't know. His weirdest role was probably Kenneth Branagh. In Wild Wild West, he was the spider techno guy. Rebekah, remember him? Loveless or something?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I love that
I was
movie.
thinking of how he was so prissy. I was thinking of how he was so prissy in Harry Potter, Chamber of Secrets. And I just was thinking, he could pull off that little prissy
I think he
act.
could be, I bet he could be Chilton. Kenneth Branagh could have been Chilton.
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yes.
Interesting.
Okay. So kind of just a quick trigger warning here on sexual assault. So for my next comment, if that is a problem, just skip over what I say. After he was cast to play Jack Crawford, Scott Glenn met with John E. Douglas, retired FBI agent and unit chief of the Behavioral Science Unit, which would later become the Behavioral Analysis Unit. Douglas, author of Mindhunter Inside the FBI's Elite Serial Crime Unit, took Glenn through the Quantico facility, and he played him recordings made by Lawrence Bittaker and Ray Norris as they raped and tortured a 16-year-old girl. In the Mindhunter book, Douglas said Glenn wept as they listened, and the experience made him change his liberal stance on the death penalty.
My gosh.
I have read Mindhunter. I own that book. It's on my bookshelf. I'm not at home, so I can't show you, but I own that. And I read it when I was considering, did I want to go into more psychology, psychiatry stuff, like criminal psych. You can tell from reading the book why these people, especially during the boom of serial killing in the 70s through the 90s, you get this sense of these men trying so hard to figure out how to prevent these things that were happening because they were just so depraved in a way that had never been seen before. It is, if you have any interest in that, if you're a big Criminal Minds fan or have any clinical interest in how this works, it is a wild read. I probably should read it again. It's fascinating.
When I read into this a little bit, I just thought, how committed am I to something that I would go through that?
You would watch the video?
I'm assuming that John Douglas prepared him for what he was going to listen to.
Oh, okay.
We see, you see so much stuff on television, on YouTube, you see dramatized stuff, and you see creepy, if you watch scary things or if you watch horror, things like that, you see those things, but to be listening to a recording and no, this was the actual thing that happened. I don't know. I mean, I thought that was wild, but it also helped me understand part of, at least, why the movie's so effective in capturing this world.
They intentionally tried to make you feel like you were walking through a day in the life of these people that worked with the most depraved criminals.
Well, Buffalo Bill's final victim, and she survived, was Catherine Martin. Very similar from book to film. I was surprised at how many lines of Catherine's were ripped straight from the book.
Right from the book.
There was a brief scene of smoking pot with her boyfriend that was excluded from the film.
She was also in the parking lot and helping him put something into his truck, I believe. But she was walking. She like went to her apartment and was walking back to her boyfriend's apartment that I believe were like in the same complex or something.
Yes. Okay. Yes.
This actress is so weird for me. I've seen her in other parts. I think she did fine with the role she had. I've never really seen her and went, oh, I need to see more stuff she does and that kind of thing.
Gotcha. You're saying plus size actresses are not ever serious actors?
That's not funny.
I agree.
Shut up. There were some other characters in the movie who we really couldn't come up with a lot of differences because they were almost identical to their character in the book. So you got Buffalo Bill or James Gum, Dr. Chilton, Senator Ruth Martin, Ardelia Mapp, and Barney. So many things we cover. The differences are so stark book to movie, and they'll change so much about things. Just in this situation, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 characters.
Majorly important to the film, especially like Buffalo Bill, James, and Dr. Chilton.
I think Dr. Chilton is a little skeevier in the film, setting up that it's satisfying for the audience that Hannibal is hunting him at the end of the film.
Yeah. And that actor too, he has that skeevy look about him.
Okay, so we have a few plot things, and then I'm excited to talk about this kind of interesting release order stuff. So, Mom, why don't you get us started on these?
There are minor details about how the case unfolds that were slightly changed for the film, such as there's a little more mystery around Moffat's identity. Which was who ended up being the head in the rental space that Clarice broke into and found a head in a jar. Not the head of something, but the actual head.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yes. There were details of the fake deal that was offered by Starling to Lecter. Some order of events were switched around a little bit, and then Lecter's ability to escape his handcuffs.
Handcuff thing was like a long drawn out. He'd been like creating a handcuff key. Several months by that point.
But I do think what they did in the film with it worked. Like it's easier to put stuff on paper.
Yeah.
And it being Chilton's fault.
Oh, yeah.
That makes it more satisfying that it will eventually be Chilton's doom.
Another random, but it was kind of small, but it threw me off. I wondered why they changed it. Starling's discovery of the risque photos in the book were photos of Catherine Martin. They're not of the first victim, as in the film, Frederica Bimmel. And in the book, the senator, Catherine's mother, essentially is creeped out by her finding them. She denies that they're relevant, and then illegally moves up, tells a law enforcement officer to move evidence, take the photos, and they don't get put into evidence or anything. Now, in the film, you actually never see them put into evidence either. So, I mean, it's not like they did that part in the film. But in the film, they use the photos as they are of the first victim. And that first victim, I don't know. They connect it to her knowing Buffalo Bill in advance and having some sort of relationship, briefly at least, even if it was just a friendship.
It seemed romantic.
No. Yeah.
It's all implied.
Yeah. Yes.
I don't think, is it, because what I got, and it was just an implication, but what I got was that James Gum was taking those pictures.
Really? In the movie or the book? The movie, yes. Yeah, agreed. I think it was implied that he took those.
And I don't know if this is why they did it, but it did give me a face to the first victim, which I would not have otherwise had. They kind of humanized her. There's also more pushback from the FBI higher ups to take Clarice off the case in the book. That's barely in the film. I remember thinking in the book, it makes sense that Crawford would get pushback for being why are you putting so much why are you relying so much on a trainee? Who is this girl? Are you sleeping with her? What's so special about her?
And the guy, his name starts with a K. The Jack Crawford's boss that in the book, like, pulls Clarice off the case, and he's very involved. We started watching Hannibal last night, and his character comes back. I assume in the book, I haven't gotten to that book yet. His character comes back in the book or in the film at the beginning of Hannibal, and he's the one rebuking Clarice. And it seems like he is an ongoing thorn in her side in the books that she's in.
There was a lot of moth lore. It's on the cover of the book and the film. The moth lore in the film, very truncated, leaves a lot to the imagination. Book has multiple visits to the insect nerds. What's his name? Rodin? Rodin and Pilcher. Clarice ends up dating Pilcher in the epilogue of the book, which I think is funny. He does appear in the graduation scene in passing, like as a little cameo. Yeah. Pilcher does.
That's hilarious. I caught that.
The film shows just one scene where the insect from the victim's throat is immediately identified. I was surprised. I watched that scene and I thought, gosh, that took a long time in the book to get through, where they were like, if it's wet in there, it's going to take us a long time to figure out what species this is. Hang out a long time.
Because I live with your dad, I have watched this one other time. And so when we got to this point in the book, which I had never read the book, I was like focused on the moths. Like, I want to know about the moths because it's so big, such a big deal in the book covers.
They have a big picture of a skull on their head.
So what's the point?
What a great coincidence.
What's the point of the book title, Silence of the Lambs?
Mother, did always think that it was mixed metaphors, that it was confused messaging to have it be called Silence of the Lambs, and it was a moth on the cover. I did always think that was mixed messaging. You watch the movie and you're like, there's just a lot of symbolism to go around in the movie, so it's fine. Yeah. I did want to talk about the scene with the night vision goggles, the climax of the film. The second climax of the film, I would argue. I don't want to just talk about the whole film, because the first climax, I would argue, is when Hannibal escapes, and it is pretty similar except for how the device that he uses to uncuff himself. Oh, I wanted to say at the beginning that one of the things I liked that wasn't changed was his escape with being disguising himself as the person. It was much tenser for me in the film, because in the book, some of it's on screen or some of it's on page, but you just kind of mention later, oh my goodness, he escaped disguised as that guy. Whereas in the film, I'm watching it and I'm like, oh my goodness, that's Hannibal Lecter, guys. And seeing how
you're wanting to holler at them, hello, wake up.
Oh my goodness. That was great. So I loved that was the first of the climax of the film and of the book as well. I think that's one of the great geniuses of this story, that I am upset that the author does not seem to understand why Silence of the Lambs is so great. I think he accidentally wrote how great this story is.
Maybe so.
But then there's the ultimate climax with Clarice and Buffalo Bill, where I thought in the film it amped up the tension. Although I was very impressed with the book, how it wrote Clarice scared in the dark. I was very impressed with that. That's probably exactly how he needed to do it. But that's just such a cinematic sequence that needs to be seen on film. Her in the dark, and then the night vision goggles turn on, so you're watching from his perspective.
So good.
It's a lot more from his perspective than Clarice's, whereas in the book it's very much from Clarice's perspective. And actually, I liked in the book, and you had to lose this in the film. I get it. I liked in the book that it went back and forth from James to Clarice's perspective, back and forth. It made me think that their perspectives were almost blurred in one sense. You guys are going to get goosebumps for this. In one sense, that Clarice is trying to get inside James' head so that she can defeat him, arrest or defeat him. And on the other hand, James is trying to get in Clarice's head because he envies her sex. They're in each other's heads. And I thought the book portrayed that great. Now, the film, what it portrayed, I'm not going to say is better, but it's equally as powerful that you start the film and throughout the film, but even at the start of the film, you have men eyeing Clarice up and down. And then the climax of the film, it's very important that she is being watched by a man who will hurt her in a way that she feels any man could. There's always that thought of, is this man going to want to kiss me so bad that he would force me to kiss him? I use the word kiss.
Yeah.
And then you're at the climax of the film. So I love the climax of the film, and I love the climax of the book. I think both of them work really well. Probably the film is a little stronger, but both of them very strong in unique ways.
But then they close the film. So Lecter calls Clarice from somewhere in South America that he's escaped. He's going to have an old friend for dinner who
Great
turns
line.
out to be Dr. Chilton, and that's great. He gets off the plane and, versus in the book, he stays at a hotel littered with recovering cosmetic surgery patients. That's interesting, but I felt like for the film, this was a game changer for me for an ending. He does a lot of procedures to change his appearance. He spent a lot of money to change his hair color, the length, and just everything to make himself look different, cleverly use a cute hat. And they touch on Catherine Martin's recovery as well. The part of this scene where he goes walking off behind Chilton. Oh my gosh. They have made me want this cannibal to go eat that man. And then I thought, oh my Lord, where's your head, woman?
One of the geniuses of the story is that Hannibal is literally an evil person who, within the context of this plot, is a protagonist. Because Buffalo Bill, catching Buffalo Bill is the goal, and Hannibal Lecter is both the help and hindrance to that goal. But he is essentially helping Clarice get there in his own funny little way. So he plays the role of a protagonist. You like him because he teams up with the hero.
Yeah.
I think it's genius. You don't see it very often at all.
Before we get out of changes, I just wanted to talk about how this was such a unique thing in terms of it's a sequel. Like, I can't think of hardly any other books or films that you could take the sequel and make them a movie that felt so much like the first in a series. And so I didn't even know all of this because I only knew of the Anthony Hopkins films. I assumed that they were released in novel form in the same order as the films, but they're not. Okay, so in novels, you have Red Dragon released in 81. These are very spread out. Silence of the Lambs was written and released in 1988. Hannibal was 11 years later in 99. And then Hannibal Rising, which is a prequel, was released in 2006.
You're forgetting the sequel that was made into a standalone film, which is what I thought of with Silence of the Lambs, specifically Die Hard.
Yeah, there was another movie before that, or another book first.
Yeah, and another movie with like Frank Sinatra as the lead.
Yeah, you're right.
I don't want to make a big deal about this, but Star Wars 4, 5, and 6 came out before 1, 2, and 3, and 7, 8, 9. So
I think it's just that this is a series
this is
of
interesting.
films.
Yes,
it's a series of films that works. Each film kind of works as a standalone.
So let's look at a little bit of statistical trivia.
Okay.
The book released on August 29th, 1988. 1988 was a great year, I think. The movie released 2.5 years, I guess, later in January 91. On the 30th, it released in New York City. And then, weirdly, who marketed this? On February 14th, it released in the U.S. and worldwide.
Huh.
I mean, it's a Valentine movie, right?
Pretty sure Josh and I watched it on a date.
Yeah, yeah. Then book ratings. Okay. Goodreads, 593,000 ratings. It got a 4.26 out of 5. Movie ratings, Rotten Tomatoes, the critics' tomato meter was 95%, held at 95%. It also has a 95% audience score. The popcorn meter is 95, which I think that's pretty cool that they're in agreement because we know that does not often happen. The production cost, $19 million. Opening weekend, $13.7 million. It had the highest February release at that time until its own sequel, Hannibal, was released 10 years later, which I thought was interesting. USA Canada gross was $130.7 million. The international gross, $142 million, bringing a total of a $19 million budget movie to $272.7 million.
I will also say,
not shabby.
In 1988 dollars, that 19 million today would be worth 53 million.
Yeah.
So like just we look at a lot of like modern movies and budgets, and so
sure. The film was shockingly, I'm sure you'll just think this, it was rated R. It was filmed in and around Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and there were some other shots, certain scenes done in northern West Virginia.
The Victorian house used as Buffalo Bill's home in Perryopolis, Pennsylvania, went up for sale in August 2015 for $300,000. After it sat unsold for a year, it sold for $195,000.
Seems like somebody would want to snap that up. I mean,
I'm shocked.
I just thought somebody would be like, oh, live in Buffalo. I don't know. I guess I'm okay.
No, I mean, there's weird people out there.
Yeah.
There was a scene in the FBI director's office that was shot in the office of Elizabeth Dole, then U.S. Secretary of Labor. Rebekah, who was the husband of Elizabeth Dole?
Dole.
Wow. And why is
Maybe
he important?
listener, we are
He
so
ran
proud
for
of
president
her.
at one point.
He did.
Yeah.
Well, I wasn't going to
guess-
ask you the year, but I will just for fun.
2008.
No. 96.
I think he might have been dead by then.
He died. No, it was tragic because
is
Norm
it?
Macdonald portrayed him on SNL, and he was like 20 years younger than Bob Dole. But Norm died a couple months before Bob Dole did. Bob Dole outlived Norm Macdonald. It was very sad.
Also, Elizabeth Dole ran for president as well.
Oh, in 08 maybe? When?
I don't know.
2000?
I don't know years. Don't ask. I just know she did.
It was actually an extremely rare occurrence that the FBI allowed some scenes to be shot at the FBI Academy at Quantico, with some bit parts being played by actual staff members. They do not usually let that happen.
Pretty cool. Yeah, I thought that was pretty cool. Between that and some of the research, I'd done I'd read a few other things about how like Hopkins and Foster both, besides what Crawford's character went through that we read about, that how Hopkins and Foster both went through and studied for the character, and thought that was interesting. The last bit of location trivia, Buffalo Bill's basement and pit design was inspired by the murders of real life kidnapper Gary Heidnik. Like, maybe that's why his house didn't sell.
Oh, because it was like too real.
Hey, so some more interesting trivia, not just about the locations. The Best Dress Award. Now, I've read ahead, and I do not know what any of this means. The Best Dress Award goes to the tobacco hornworm moths used during the film. They were dressed in body shields, bearing a painted skull and crossbones, which I didn't know was a thing. Moving right along, they were also flown to the set first class in a special carrier and had their own rooms with heat and humidity controls. I didn't know that a moth could control a thermometer.
Why? I read that and I was like, what? catch a freaking butterfly out in the field.
I don't think they can do that, Mom.
How much of the $19 million was put into these stupid hornworm moths?
Mm-hmm.
That's what I want to know. I'd love to know.
Anthony Hopkins and Martha Stewart were dating.
That's a couple
just
right there.
before and during production of the movie. After the film was released, Martha Stewart broke it off and said she couldn't separate Hopkins from Lecter.
Okay. Let's talk about Dad. Let's talk about Dad for a minute.
Oh no.
Before we got married, we had discussions about are we compatible? Just kind of some of them very serious discussions, but things like we kind of made jokes about it. Do you squeeze your toothpaste in the middle or do you squeeze it from the end and just that kind of thing? Dad says to me, in all seriousness, please, whatever you do, don't ever bring a knife to bed with you.
As a prank,
And
maybe?
I looked at him and was like, who? What do you think of me? Why would I ever conceive a notion to put a knife in my hand and carry it to bed? And he was like, I was just thinking like prank or and he was so serious. And I was like, okay, I thought mine was brutal too, but not the knife. Anyway, I just thought it,
On that note, let's give our final verdicts, and I will go first.
Oh, you don't want to go last? You're the most passionate about it.
Oh, I'm so passionate. You can go first.
I think the book's great. Let's say 9 out of 10. Silence of the Lambs, the movie's great. Maybe a 9.5 out of 10. I think the movie makes a lot of improvements. I am torn on Anthony Hopkins because he does some great stuff and he's also kind of weird, but I don't know if it's on purpose. I think any changes from the book, which there are very few, any changes from the book are mostly good or necessary changes. I also feel like it's one of the most faithful adaptations from a book we've ever covered.
even the differences in appearance from what they were described were minuscule. What do you think of Demi as a director then?
Okay, that's a great question. I was forgetting because I did have an opinion that I forgot to mention.
Yeah.
I haven't seen Philadelphia, which I would say is probably his second most famous film that he directed. Okay. So I don't know about his holistic work, but the fact that I haven't really heard of anything besides Silence of the Lambs and Philadelphia tells me something, that it was also an accident that he made this so well. His camera work being, acting as the male gaze towards Clarice, and then how often characters, whenever Clarice is looking at someone and the camera looks at them, how often the other characters are looking into the camera.
Huge. It's huge. That was very intentional.
Yeah.
I read several things about that, and I'm really sorry I didn't mention them before, but I'm glad you brought it up. He did several things like that where he wanted, especially Lecter, he wanted you to see those characters looking at you. Yeah. He wanted the viewer to see that. And I thought that was wild because that can also be kind of a risk, right? I mean, risk. You take a risk when you do it.
Another risk in the cinematography is that so many of the characters are framed in the center of the shot, which is usually a very unnatural place to be. You reserve it for kingly characters or tyrants, very powerful people. But the reverse shot for Clarice and Cardwell, what's his name? Cardstock?
Doctor.
No.
Chill?
No,
the
it
other
was
one.
Jack Crawford.
Jack Crawford. Jack Cardstock.
How many names can Jack Cardstock have?
Cardstock is in the center of the frame, but so is Hannibal Lecter, so is Chilton, so is Clarice often, so is Catherine, so is Buffalo Bill. All these characters are in the center of the frame, and that's such an unnatural place. And Mom, what you mentioned of just the looking into the camera being a risk is totally true, because you risk it feeling corny or you break people's suspension of disbelief. But this established a film language, and it was consistent throughout. So it was a very capably directed and cinematographed film, which I do believe makes it that the film is better. But the book is great. Yeah. I think that the movie, more so than the book, invented the genre of Criminal Minds.
So for me, I was not sure what this book would be like. I wondered if it would be dull. And I don't mean that in a bad way, because I really didn't know anything about the book other than it existed. But I was so pleased at how it moved along. It kept my attention. When I started listening to it, I wanted to keep listening to it. Like I wanted to get through it to see the next thing. I wasn't like, oh, when's the end? So I really was pleased with that. I would say definitely the book would be a 9. The movie, I haven't seen it since the early 90s. Looking at the mind of a serial killer to me is a fascinating thing because it's so foreign to how we would think. And I want to understand that. And I've, it's a broken record. So I will say I did like the movie better than the book. If I gave the book a 9 to 9.25, I mean, I'd say the movie, I'd go to a 9.5, but they were close. They were really close. And I'm pleasantly surprised at my reactions to both of them.
My final verdict, I have, like I said, seen this movie so many times. I don't know that I would say it's a movie I just put on in the background all the time. It's an intentional watch. But I went and looked at what I rated the book, and I actually gave it like a 7.5. There was something in the writing style that I hated that drove me nuts. And I'm curious, Josiah, of your thoughts, but it changed a lot from present tense to past tense. And I could tell it was purposeful. Like, I don't think it was the author's mistake or like the editors, missed it or anything. Every time I saw it, it like bugged me. I thought that the moth stuff was interesting and felt more accurate when they extended it. But then I was like, I don't know, in the movie, it made more sense. I didn't love that they point out in the book, as in the film, that Pilcher has like a lazy eye. And then that's the guy that Starling ends up with. I don't know why that like bothers me. So I don't know. There was just a lot that I was like, okay, this isn't bad. And obviously it inspired such an incredible work for a reason. But yeah, it was not as good as the film for sure. The film made a lot of improvements. I agree with Josiah's statement about that. And I would say the film is probably 9.5 out of 10 for me. I think it's a classic for a reason. Silence of the Lambs is one of those movies that when we talk to young adults that are trying to get more into, watching really iconic films, this is always on the list because it's so creepy and weird, but it's really so unique for its time and for the way that it's set up. So that's what I think. Well, I think that that's where we're going to leave it. I hope that you have enjoyed this episode as much as we have enjoyed filming it for you. If you did, leave us a review.
A review?
Yeah, please.
Baby listeners, please.
So many thousands of listens. And so few thousands of reviews. I'm begging, please. I'm kidding, except I'm kind of not. Anyway, you can also support us on Patreon. There is a link in the description. And you should support us there, get some fun bonus content, and find us on social. Mom has been really active on X, and we're posting regularly on Instagram and some TikToks, some Facebook. We're all over the place. At Book is Better Pod. And until next time.
Goodbye, baby listeners. If we keep meeting like this, people will say we're in love. Yes, Hannibal Lecter's classic laugh. Bye. Bye.
but on another note, I bet consignment stores for moth clothes wouldn't do